with, well, lots of things, but before that as well, I remember seeing Andy Warhol on the King's Road in London, because we were there promoting Listen Like Thieves, the album before Kick, and he was standing in CDs were brand new, and he was standing with his assistant, and he was putting the CDs in a backpack of his assistant, you know, and then I thought, how about that? And he walked out, and then we went over to New York, where the Atlantic gave us an award for 1 million sales or whatever it was in those days of Listen Like Thieves, and he was sitting in front of us. And I thought it was so strange, you know, that I just seen the bloke over there, and there he is, you know, but he was talking about Michael, you know, and it was, yeah, but I think some of the things that we would think about and not think about, I'd have to replay a lot of it into my head later on. Like at the time, you're like, okay, you know, yeah, sure. I rewind it, you know, later on and go, what was that, you know, but amazing.
Down the front here. Sorry, making you guys run around a bit.
Sorry, James. This is for I've got a Montang now. Andrew and Giles. What's the highlight for both of you? Sorry. All right.
So what was the question we missed?
Sorry.
What's
the highlight for Giles and Andrew for the INXS period?
Well, the highlight for you guys in the INXS period. So that's we're looking at a long time there. Can you pencil that down?
Well, actually, you know, yeah, and I really appreciate what Giles said about, you know, me bringing you in to this thing. Are you sure you're okay with that? But I was going to say that that Michael and I actually worked with Giles on 2 songs when Michael was alive.
So what songs were they?
One of them was The Stranger's Party, and the other one was. I don't know what it was.
I can't remember what it was.
It was on our greatest hits album. It'll come to me, I'm sorry. Yeah. Deliver Me.
There it is. Deliver Me.
And I was like, anyway, but he's quite right. And the highlight, you know, for me, I mean, I have to say with Kick and the 30-year, you know, celebration of that album must be sitting here tonight.
Wow.
Incredible.
Andrew, just want to say thank you for everything you gave us over the years, and just also wondering, I mean that from the heart, you re-recorded The Loved One on the Kick album, and I remember reading when I was younger in an article or something that you guys had a hard time recording it the first time around. So whose idea was it to re-record it?
It was my brother Tim's. It was his suggestion.
Timmy here,
and,
one of the best cover versions ever.
Tim's here. But the giant, like different from the original one that you guys did back in 1980 thereabouts to this one. This is it's almost like the band's kind of grown up a little bit. Would that be fair to say?
I don't think we ever grew up.
No, but sound-wise.
No. But I know. Well, I think what it was, and I know I don't like speaking from a bandmates, but I'm trying to have a go here. Is that I think what we thought.
Jump in, Tim.
Yeah, right. I thought what we probably felt like was that we had so much more, not so much growing up, probably growing down in some ways, but it was more that we probably felt that we had more live experience under our belt, and that we had felt a more sort of gritty, bluesy style we wanted to try and deliver with the recording, you know, and I think that's where Chris Thomas picked up as a producer that what we were trying to do, and Tim was quite right.
I suppose really what I meant, I guess you really made it your own in that one. For the Loved Ones version, there wasn't much of it. It was, I found a stronger song, like you made a great song better, but then you made it your own in that one. I think that's what I'm getting at.
Jerry Humphries was bloody lucky we did it twice.
Yes, he's getting some money out. Yes, up the back there.
Hey, Andy. How you going, mate? Yeah, look out. I've been a really big INXS fan since I was 14. I snagged myself one of them, so I'm pretty happy about that. But it's not about me, it's about you. So I just want to congratulate you on everything that you've done, and the band on everything they've done. You've been the theme of my life and the theme of nearly everyone's life in this house tonight. It's been monumental. You've spoken about the highs and the lows and the surreal moments, and I'm sure one of the most surreal moments you had to go through was losing Michael as your front man. And I want to know what inspired you or what gave you the courage to all get past that and then stand back up and reinvent yourselves and become so successful with Switch and all the other things that you've gone on to do.
Yeah, sure. Come on, mate. I know God works in mysterious ways, but I've got to say that, you know, I had a short conversation with the loss of Giles' father, with the man who's present tonight, who had to put a eulogy together, and Giles did too. And for me, I know I had to do something similar. I didn't have to, but I felt I was honoured to do that. In these difficult situations we all get faced with in life, you try to keep it simple, but there's so much you want to say. But I have to say, on a personal note, yes, losing Michael, I think, was an awful moment. But also 2 years before that, for the Farriss brothers here, we lost our mum to breast cancer, and in 1995. Unfortunately, Mum lost that fight, so did our aunt. But somehow, when losing Michael 2 years later, I felt there was, you know, a real sense of strength, believe it or not, from that experience, where you sort of go, well, you know, toughen up, buttercup. You know, you sort of just, you've got to get through it. And we all experience loss; it's part of life. So you deal with it. But you know, Lainey, I really appreciate your comment. Thanks, darling.
Thank you, Over in the, so I've got the lady over there, the young fella over there. Yes.
Hello, is it on?
You're on.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to ask you, firstly, mainly to Andrew, you mentioned Chris Thomas and Bob Clearmountain, and huge fan of both of them. I just wanted you to elaborate on what they brought to the sound, what particular aspects they brought to the sound of the Kick album. And to Giles, I just wanted to ask in terms of the Atmos remix, I noticed that Kick, which you were talking about, is a very kind of front-focused mix. It's almost like a wall of sound, almost mono, not a lot of surround really happening, as opposed to the Loved One, which I thought was the great revelation to be for the night, because she just totally deconstructed and reconstructed that, and there was, because that was originally a very, again, kind of wall of sound, almost mono mix, especially in its original version, and you just exploded it out. You know, just there were guitar licks I didn't even know were there that I heard tonight. So just wondered if you could talk about how you decided on what kind of focus you'd have in terms of your Atmos surround with the different tracks, because it did seem to vary a little bit.
Do you want me to tackle the front part of that?
You do the front part, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll think about how I'm going to line my way through the
He'll
second
rearrange it.
That's what I thought. Well done. I was going to thank you. I was going to say that that the first part of what you said, that I have to come back to what Giles said earlier, and that is that you know, and the gentleman over there pointed out there might have been a discrepancy on the masters between what you heard tonight. I actually think that's really cool, actually, personally, that there may be some discrepancy and it's not exactly the same. In fact, you know, I said to a couple of guys in the band that Devil Inside actually sounded to me more like what I remember when we first recorded it. And not to take anything away from what Bob Clearmountain did to the mix, but when Chris Thomas mixed it straight off when we first recorded it, sounded more like, to me, what Giles did tonight. You know, and that I thought that was really cool. That it was a bit more ballsy and a little bit more, perhaps a little less radio friendly, and a little bit more like what we really sounded like live, in my opinion. You know, so yeah.
And the other point is, yeah, there's no real rules, to be honest. There's no real rules in mixing. You kind of go with what you feel. I like to lay some sort of equation, but something like Kick is to me is like being punched in the face. Okay, and you want to be punched in the face from a single point. Well, you actually don't want to be punched in the face at all. I mean, if you want to be punched in the face, be punched in the face. If you're going to punch someone in the face, no. So really, the way the song is, so you'd say something like, well, Devil Inside, which has a lot of percussion in it, which sort of you can hear around you. Some guitar licks, moving guitars around. Depending on what's on the multi-track, it's depending how you mix it. So Kick is kind of like a wall of sound. It's heavily limited on the original. It's kind of like that. And so therefore, even though you'll find that actually if you look at all the room, there's the same amount of energy coming from the same speakers. It's not so discrete. You don't hear individual things so much. So you get this wall of sound. So that's my lying answer to you about what I did. No, that's the answer.
Well, this sounded really good. I was buying.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was very good. Yes.
First of all, this guy better ask a question because he's been putting his hand up, and I'll ask one after.
Thank you. My name's Byron. I've flown out from Adelaide to be here tonight. I'm a huge fan.
Hey, Byron.
With my lovely mum.
Hi, Byron's mum.
Hope he's behaving himself.
I am in a band myself, and my question to you is, would you mind if I came up there, shook your hand, and gave you our debut EP to listen to?
Okay, sure. Good on you, Brian. I'm just going to play that on the radio tomorrow. I'm not even going to listen to it. I'm not going to listen to it. The Signs. This is The Signs. The Signs.
There you go.
The Signs, first and foremost.
The Signs.
Yeah. The Signs. Give it up for The Signs. You guys, you need to listen to that. Has anyone else got any albums they want to bring up? Like Byron's Thunder. I've got some spoken word stuff that maybe you guys could work on. Any other questions? Up the back. Sorry, mate. Oh, you forgot yours. Sorry, mate. We'll get back to you next. We'll go there and then you.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Andrew and the boys for making the best album of all time. I can give it up. The question is, did you know you had it on the demos, or did you have to wait till the finished product to know what you had in your hands?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you never really know, just like Byron that gave us a CD, you never really know if what you've got is what you think it is. You really rarely do. I think probably in the case of the Kick album, it was an overwhelming sense of, you know, with the belief from Chris Murphy and other people around us, you know, like Chris Thomas and Bob Clearmountain and David Nicholas and Phil Mortlock, who's here tonight as well, and Paul Turner and other people in Australia at the time. And there was Aussies and other people around us that were nurturing, supportive crew, like I said before, and other people. And those people who don't necessarily have any vested interest in you being successful, that support somehow does it to give you that sense that you can take on the world, because you feel that support from people. And for young people, that's extremely important. When, I don't know your name, but the girl that was asking about great moment at Wembley, I was being a bit stupid before, but I've got to say to you that also, you know, being able to stand there with my brothers and with Michael and Kirk and Gary, all my brothers really, and do that together, unbelievable. Really unbelievable.
That's your time. This is you.
Hi, Giles and Andrew. Again, to Richard and everyone else, thank you for the music. It's been fantastic from under the covers all the way through. It's been playing in my car when I did have a cassette player. And I'm a massive fan of the Beatles, and what you did for Sgt. Pepper's anniversary album was fantastic. But with your career, with the career of the INXS, did you feel the momentum getting bigger and bigger as you're getting there through the early days? And I know you, and another part of the question is, I know you played Wembley, but you must have played a lot of smaller venues that didn't go so well. And how did you get yourself up, or the whole band, to keep going and trudging through that hard work and that barrier?
Well, in the early days, it was playing live, and we played live everywhere. Anywhere. At one point, we were doing 9 shows a week. We were playing, all 7 days a week, and 2 shows on a Friday and a Saturday night. And that's how we made that first album, was from midnight until about 6 a.m. in the morning. And in between the live shows, that first album, which sounds like it. But, it was really, I always thought, it's funny, that question, because I always never thought of us as a recording artists. I always thought of us as a live act that had this funny little soundtrack running in the background. But I always knew instinctively in my mind that I'd better pay attention to the creative end of where this is going, because the live thing is just meanders. It's a bit like a water down a river. It's going to go wherever it's going to go, or not, But the creative end of it does need to be thought carefully about, and you can't. But in my mind, you can't really have one without the other. I've always thought live performance really helps recordings. And it helps you to understand with live audiences as well. You see the reaction from your songs with the people who you're performing in front of. And some sort of go, and you sort of go, okay, because then you get more of a guideline without it even going on radio. You got a pretty good idea that will do well. And so you sort of, but all these things are instinctual as well. You have to pick up on it as you're going along.
Up the back.
Hi. You've had some success with other lead singers since Michael, and Terence Trent D'Arby, John Stevens, and you released a new album with JD Fortune. There was rumours about Susie DiMarchi. What's next for you guys?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I mean, I guess stay tuned. But I think the thing is we're really celebrating what we've already done, and in fact, I'm not just avoiding the question. I'll come back to something you said there, but I remember something that your father George said when we got. I'm pretty sure it was at the first ARIA Awards in Australia, and Elton John got up and he said, "Whatever you do, don't take it on television." Because he wanted to keep it feeling like he said, "This is just great," because it's not all about it. Whatever. But the point is that Giles' father came up afterwards. We won an ARIA or two or three or whatever. I don't know. And he came up, and I said to him, "Well, wait till you hear what we do next." And I'll never forget. He said to me, "What's wrong with what you've already done?" And I think sometimes there's a lot of truth in that. You just have to stop. And if you've done something successful in your life, it's not necessarily about the next great thing you do. It's actually really enjoying what you've already done. Yeah.
Up the back there.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Since we're here about mixing and producing and stuff, personally myself, some of the best albums out of the 70s and 80s is Talking Heads and Roxy Music and things like that. Brian Eno, who produced Joshua Tree in the same year, what kind of contact and relationship with him, if you had any?
That's very interesting. Actually, on the Full Moon Dirty Hearts album, which came out, I think, in '93, Brian Eno actually remixed a couple of those tracks for us, and I had a surreal conversation with Mr. Eno when I went to talk to him, because I said, 2 of my children have been born to your ambient music.
Yeah.
And he said, "I get that a lot." That's what he said. And I thought it was a surreal conversation. Anyway, but before that, to the people you're mentioning and talking about, Brian Eno was in Roxy Music when Chris Thomas produced them. He was a member of a band. When Chris Thomas, the producer, who produced Kick. So it's all interlinked, believe it or not. And I think, Talking Heads and Brian Eno, an incredible bunch of people, and they're influential. Actually, I have to say, particularly Talking Heads, were quite influential for Michael and I in our writing as well. We used to listen to the Remain in Light album a lot, and we just, enjoyed that, where it was going. I think it did get us into problems, though, in a sense. I think Australians, for a while, were struggling to figure out, once again, what we were doing, because we went from the swing, which is sort of one thing, and then we'd go and do this other thing, and then, and we didn't keep making the same records over and over and over. Yeah.
Up the back again.
Hi, I just want to know, where was your favourite place to perform?
Yeah, actually, Alicante Wine Bar, that's right. but in North Sydney. No, well, to me, you know, being an Australian, I was proudest when we performed in Australia and we pulled it off wherever it was, you know. That's for me. You know. But it varies. I mean, you know, there's other markers and things in your life. You know, I remember we played twice at Madison Square Garden in New York City, and the first time we played there, we were fortunate to have Ziggy Marley out on that tour for 3 months with us in America, and the Wailers, and we got to talk to them, you know, amazing people. And Rita, Bob's wife, was out on the tour to keep an eye on Ziggy, so he didn't get into too much trouble there on tour. But the point is that after the show, first show we did in Madison Square Garden, I think it was 1987 or 88, what it was, I got off stage and walked backstage, you know, over a drink and, you know, a glass of water and a towel off and just relax in our little green room we had. Well, Keith Richards walked through the door with his wife, Patty Hansen, and the drummer, Steve Jordan. They come through the door, and I'm like, oh, wow, right, because I just, you know. So I'm standing there, and I'd never met him before, and there was a friend of ours was in the room. She got really nervous and dropped this beer and it smashed all over the floor, whatever. And I'm trying to say, wow, how are you? Because, you know, you want to be friendly and come on in and all this. And I'm talking to him for a while, and he says, would you like a cigarette? I said, sure. So he pulls his Marlboros out and goes to flick one over to me and throws a whole packet over me. So I'm sitting there putting them all back in his, you know, cigarette packet again. But I got a different image. I like the sense of humour of those people, actually. And then I sat there for a while. I started feeling really nervous and I said, look, don't you want to go up the corridor and talk to Michael? Everyone wants to talk to Michael. And he goes, he's the fucking singer. I don't want to talk to him. But you know.
I guess, like, you know, Madison Square Garden to the Coleman Cutter Hotel at Blacktown.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One of the big gigs, like, because in the pub scene in Sydney, and it's great to see it's sort of having a little bit of a resurgence. But what was your favourite pub outside of the Coleman Cutter?
Well, it's funny you should mention the Coleman Cutter, Jonesy, because my younger brother may remember we had in those days 1 or 2 roadies or whatever we had, which was a huge thing for us, and a small 2-ton truck or whatever it was with our gear in it. And we'd been supporting Midnight Oil, and they did a great, you know, awesome gig. But anyway, after while they were on stage, I walked out to get in my car and drive home, which is a Volkswagen Beetle, and the row crew member was walking across the car park, and a Holden full of guys came and drove their car into him. And I went over to the, and said into the car, you know, something like, you know, a swear word, and I said, that's really not good, you know, into the car. Well, there had 5 guys jump out, and they were colours from a bikie gang, so they threw me up against a chain wire fence and started laying. I thought I was going to die, you know. And then my younger brother runs out and gets the security guys or bouncers or whatever. There's this brawl going on, you know, and, you know, but you ask what those years were like. I think those years for us really helped in the US when we got there, because, you know, you'd go on with a lot of other pop acts and people, and they'd been on TV or whatever, you know, but they didn't go through a lot of experiences like that. And then when you actually walk out and you're there and it's your shit's on the line, you have to get your act together, you know, and all those experiences gritted us up a bit. So we were kind of cutesy and poppy a little bit, but I think we had this other thing in there, you know, and it really helped us. You know?
Excellent. Yes, where are we now? Oh, no more? Oh, we've not even a last one? We're going to have a last one. Sorry, last question. I'm sorry, I don't know where to, it's like Sophie's Choice, I don't know where to go. Sorry, yeah, you. No pressure, because this is the last question. You know, a lot of people mad at you if you say, what do you think of Australia so far?
Simple one. Pretty simple question. To Andrew, what was your most favourite guitar that you ever used in the studio or live?
Yeah, good question. Probably for me, I still have it actually, a 1956 Strat that I bought in Chicago for $800, and I basically in the 80s somewhere, And the guy who sold it to me was an old guy, and he'd sold it new in 1956. And it'd been stripped or whatever, and I couldn't believe I was holding this thing. And I went back, and I've always loved that guitar, but these guys in my band have the most amazing guitars, all of them, trust me. Right? Beautiful instruments, amazing. We're lucky.
He didn't ask what your favourite investment was. Can I just say something before you wrap up?
No, sure.
Because I'm this sort of posh lemon English guy sitting here. Can we get the band down here?
Yeah. Yes, come on, where's the band?
And so I can go away.
Yes. Come on. They've been heckling to the side. Yeah. You're the band, you have to stay here. You're the band. You guys were heckling before, weren't you?
Yeah.
G'day.
Gary Beard.
Kirk Pengelly.
I think we're the only ones here.
Is Tim gone? Tim was here.
It's past Tim and John's birthday.
Tim and John were here. I'm in the bathroom.
It's past their bedtime.
Again? Hang on, I'm going to get up at 3:30 in the morning. They should be here. Come on.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway, big round of applause for... Thanks,
And to Chris Murphy as well.
Yes, Chris Murphy. And a big round of applause to Giles Martin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Giles.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been great. It's the first time I've sat in a darkened room with a bunch of people and with my clothes on, so it's been good. So, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So, thank you very much. Thank you. Good on you, bro. You know.